Good morning children. Once again I am before you with the video number 30 and the chapter number 11, reproduction in plant. In previous video we have discussed about the sexual reproduction, and in this video we will discuss about sexual reproduction in plants. Now just see, in case of sexual reproduction, single gametes are involved, while in case of sexual reproduction, two gametes, that is male gametes and female gametes, are involved. Let us discuss about the sexual reproduction in plants. Sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction occurs as a result of fusion of male and female gametes. The male gametes in plants are called pollen grains and female gametes are called ova. The reproductive part of the plants is the flower. The plants which bears flower are known as flowering plant. Based on male and female reproductive parts, there are two types of flowers. How many types of flowers? Two types of flowers. Number one is the unisexual flowers. Number two is the bisexual flowers. In case of unisexual flowers, the flowers in which either male or female reproductive part is present is called a unisexual flower. Example, corn and papaya. Bisexual flowers, the flower in which both male and female reproductive parts are present, is called bisexual flower. Example, mustard, rose. Let us see the diagram also of the unisexual and bisexual flowers.
3.
Let us see the structure of unisexual flower like China rose and brinjal plant, while the bisexual flower papaya plant and cucumber plant. Now another one is the male reproductive part and the female reproductive part. When we talk about the male reproductive part of the plant, it is a stamen. A stamen is the male reproductive part of the flower. Each stamen consists of filament and anther. The anther carries several pollen grains. Pollen grains produce the male gamete, whereas pistil, it is the female reproductive part of the flower. It is broader at the base and tapers at the top. The lower broader portion is the ovary. Ovary contains ovules which produces eggs or female gametes. The upper portion of the pistil is called the style. A style has on its tip a sticky end. That sticky end is called a stigma. In flowers, the process of reproduction starts with the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma by air, water, insect, etc. The male and female gamete fuse to form the zygote. Let us see the structure of the male reproductive part, stamen, and the female reproductive parts, pistil. See the structure of pistil, in which you will see that a stigma, a style, ovules, ovary, and similarly in case of a stamen, you will see here the upper portion, that is anther, which contains pollen grain and which is attached to whom? The filament. Now coming to the next content in the sexual reproduction. Another one is the pollination. The transfer of pollen grain from anther to a stigma of a same or different flower is called pollination. Depending upon the flower which is pollinated, pollination is classified as two kinds: self-pollination and cross-pollination. What happens in the self-pollination? The pollination which occurs when pollen from anther land on the stigma of same flower is called self-pollination. It occurs only in bisexual flowers. Whereas cross-pollination, when pollen from anther land on the stigma of another flower of the same plant or another plant of the same kind, it is called the cross-pollination. It can take place both in unisexual and bisexual flower. It can take place both in unisexual and bisexual flower. Let us see the diagram of self-pollination and cross-pollination. In case of self-pollination, you can see here a stigma. Self-pollination, the pollen grain from the same flower, same plant, and This is the anther. Similarly, in cross pollination, you can see either it is from the same another plant of another flower and a stigma here. So you will see the diagram of self pollination and cross pollination. Now, what are the agents of pollination? Insects, wind, water, these are the agents of pollination. In case of insect, it causes pollination in flower which produce nectar. Wind pollination, wind pollinated flowers are small and not brightly colored. These flowers do not produce scents or nectar. Example are maize, wheat, rice, etc. are some wind pollinated plants. Water pollination. Some aquatic plants release their pollen grains into the water and they are carried to other flowers by water carriers. Example, hydrilla, balysteria and seagrass. Next one is the fertilization in plants. It is the process of fusion of male and female gametes inside the ovule to form a zygote. What happens during pollination? During pollination, pollen grains are carried from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the same or some other flower of the same kind. After pollination, pollen grains form a tube called pollen tube. The pollen tube grows through the style and reaches one of the ovule in the ovary. The pollen tube enters the ovule through the style. See the diagram that how the fertilization occurs in the plant. See here the egg cell, ovary, embryo sac, that is called female gametophyte, the male gamete. Here you will see there that pollen grains on the top, then the anther, germinated pollen grains, that is called male gametophytes. The pollen tube is here, that is germinated. When it goes upwards, you can see here germinated pollen grains are there. This is about the fertilization. Now, fruits and seed formation, another topic. After fertilization, the petals, a stamen, a style and a stigma of the flower fall off, the sepal dries up and holds on to the ovule. Each fertilized ovule contains a zygote. The zygote then begins to divide and forms an embryo. Embryo contains one or two cotyledons which store food for future. The fertilized and developed ovule containing embryo is called a seed. Some of the assignment questions based upon the video number 30. Question number 1, define fertilization. Question number 2, distinguish between unisexual and bisexual flowers. Question number 3, what do you mean by pollination? Differentiate between self and cross pollination. Question number 4, what happens after pollination in plants? Question number 5, name the different agents of pollination. So dear student, in the video number 30, after watching, you will be aware about sexual reproduction in plants. You will know about the stamen, pistil, pollination, self-pollination, cross-pollination and fertilization in plants. Thank you. Keep watching the video. Stay home and stay fit. Thank you.